Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another recording of Dante's Old South here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, with WUTC, affiliated with NPR. Yet again, we cannot say enough nor thank enough this station and NPR for having us back to round up our intelligent band of hoodlums and bring their talents to you. We have music, we have prose, and we have poetry. The ladies and gentlemen that are on this show, you have yet to hear, and the music has yet to find its way into your living rooms. I hope that they all bring hope and laughter and truth into your life. Because with the Southern Collective experience, it's not to exalt what we do over you, but to hope what we do together makes the world a better place. And what I'll do first, Mr. Clifford Brooks, is to read a poem from my new book, Athena DePart's Gospel of a Man Apart, named Blues Round Midnight. Robert Johnson jacked up my love of brown liquor. The affection affixes me to the sprawling agony of furies. But there ain't no blues Beelzebub can bounce off me that the right woman can't wave away. Numb night terrors have me harangued and haunted. Gums receding, mentally rickety. The recollection of losing a girlfriend to Christ doesn't develop into a malady of doubt. He can have her. She's married with 5 kids now. I never adopt another's anxiety, and when guilt gets in my guts, I got to get going. Little old ladies are precious in pews praying for me. The music never changes. It's a tender language. They are a prayer list. Such a small, quiet room where people think of the dead and sniffle. Held down hard by heavy breaths, I insist my grief is the stabbing sprawl of what pain is the day after vodka sucked from a plastic bottle. Amore and addiction, their taste is exactly the same. And I sew them both up in a burlap sack and sink it in the Oconee. I reflect on all the reasons life refused to let me go. There were 3 winters where my resolve failed like Hector. An anecdote was absent. I was absent. In the ache of being no one, my ego left a contusion still etched on my face. I have foregone trying to find its cause, where it remains elusive. Still, I'll stay awake, but unaware, beyond the burden my mind can bear. Every day I decide to ignore my rusty pipes and deem the migraines divine. In time, there will be quiet, and my qualms with worry will be seeds of an escape. I cannot wait for a clean slate, saying to Etta James, don't explain. And first on the list is a longtime and member of the Southern Collective Experience and the prose and fiction editor of the Blue Mountain Review. His name is Shane Etter. I've known Shane for about 3.5 to 4 years. And at the open mic in Dahlonega, where we first crossed paths, when you hear someone who perhaps their work is rough, which his was not, when you hear that there was that, you hear that spark, that's something that's as metaphysical as it sounds, that spark that means that the words are going to come across in a way that something bigger than us intends. You see it, you know it, you feel it. And Shane and I didn't see each other again for about 2 years until we bumped into each other at a writing retreat. And the minute we came back in contact with each other, it was a divine point of I have found the guy in the group that can carry the right weight. Shane is here again today, and probably will every time we have this show, because his prose is some of the best that I have ever heard. Shane, tell us a little bit about where you grew up and some of your favorite childhood memories.
I'm from Jackson, Mississippi, so I'm a true son of the South and lived in the burbs in a typical 50s ranch, middle-income family with 2 younger siblings, one of each. I won't say 3 younger siblings, one of each, like my niece Gracie said one time when someone asked her a question if she was going to have kids. She said 3, one of each. Can only assume she meant a boy, a girl, and a dog. But I had 2 siblings, one of each, and that are younger than I, and grew up in a typical middle-class family in the 50s and 60s in the South. So great upbringing.
And growing up in Jackson, Mississippi, what are those seminal memories you have that maybe didn't convince you you're going to be a writer, but had the details and embedded a story in you that later became something you had to put on paper?
Well, I remember reading the collected works of Shakespeare when I was like in the 5th grade. I remember reading Sherlock Holmes in the 3rd grade and just completely enamored of them. I guess it tells you what, I physically have a big old egg head. I mean, no one can see it in the listening audience, but you guys can see it. And so I'm not only physically an egghead, but I guess mentally an egghead as well if I read Shakespeare and Sherlock Holmes.
No, what that means is that you were a smart man then and you're a smart man now. So the egghead just means that poultry is now sexy. That's all I'm saying. So moving beyond that and chickens, your rural landscape and what you grew up with and in, obviously people always ask if they have something to do or reflect on your writing. But now that you live in Atlanta, do you find it easier to write about the more urban areas, or does the rural stick with you?
Definitely. No, the urban areas are what appeal to me more now because I have been in Atlanta for over 25 years. And New York City is a favorite of mine. And now, after being fortunate enough to do some international travel over the last few years, we'll see me going internationally with scenes and settings for my books.
So that leads me to my next question. Honestly, I've been chomping at the bit to ask this. With travel and broadening your scope, obviously gives you something more to write about. But what I want to know is, not only is that important, but the energy that it gives you to get out and feel new countries and feel new cultures. When you get back home, do you bring that exuberance with you?
Everything I see, hear, smell, taste inspires me and my writing. But the energy of some of the countries that I've been fortunate enough to visit, both in Southeast Asia and in the UK, just inspires me, and I will adapt certain settings or situations for my writing in this country as well.
Just a second. I'm making you contort yourself, Shane. I'm going to put the microphone over this side, so when you look at
Awesome.
Clifford, you're looking at the microphone. Sorry, I should have done that in the first place.
Sorry, I wasn't able to do it well.
I was going to say that, but he usually punches me when I try to correct him. So, I mean, he looks like a good Brit guy, but...
Much better.
That was bothering me, too, because you're over here like, what I was going to say. Actually, do you think that it honestly helps, deeply helps a writer or an artist to do as much travel as possible?
I definitely believe that, because I think that, I like to say, there was a line in a movie, Remember the Titans, years ago, when Denzel Washington asked a young man why he came out for football. And the kid said, I just like to hit people. And Denzel said, I like a self-aware man. And it's what I'm getting to is I think traveling, both domestically and internationally, has made me more self-aware. So, and as I like to say, Stephen King says when you sit down to write, you should go in your office, lock the door, draw the shades, tell your wife to leave you alone, lock the door so the kids can't get in, turn off your television, your phone, and start writing. If I had to do it that way, just shoot me now. I'm inspired. I need sensory input to write. And I mean, like I say, the aforementioned conversations, visuals, the smells, the tastes, the feelings. I need everything I experience inspires me, and that's why I say I need sensory input. And I try to convey that. I can't remember who it was, but obviously a very smart writer said that in every scene, you should try and reach all 5 senses.
That would be me.
I know that's you. And I may not can do it in every scene. There might not be anything to taste, just for instance, but there's probably something to see, to hear, to feel, and to smell. So I try to affect all 5 senses. I hope there's only 5.
There's a 6th one, but that sees dead people, so you're good.
Okay. But I try to affect all 5 senses in everything I write while searching for the perfect word every single time, which we were talking about earlier out front. That the more we write, I think David Morrell, I don't know if you know that name, he wrote, what was the first First Blood? He wrote the novel First Blood. And David Morrell said that every sentence you write you should try and make every sentence you write the best sentence you've ever written. And when I read that 3 or 4 years ago, I thought, impossible. Now I'm taking it a step further. I try to make every word I write the perfect word for that place and time and the best word I've ever written. So that's how good writers inspire me.
And I think, honestly, there you go again. As far as with travel, it's the actual reading. And so I think it was Emerson that said the good reader is the good writer. Again, it's the, if you don't get out there and expand yourself, if not physically traveling in the book to travel, you can't. You're very myopic in what you have to write. And now that you have explained your nearly scientific way with a scalpel to do what you do, please thrill us with some of your prose.
I will do my best, I promise you. This is from A Brain in Third Person. Brain in Third Person is about a serial killer in Atlanta. When the book opens, he's an effeminate, perfect young man, prim and proper, gets manicures, pedicures, the perfect haircut, and then he suffers a traumatic brain injury, a TBI, in a car accident, and overnight changes from what he was to a meat-eating, weightlifting, long-haired, tattooed, foul-mouthed serial killer. And this happens overnight because of a TBI. And in this passage I'm going to read here, a female detective, and he kills 7 people first in Atlanta before he moves to Savannah, Georgia, and kills 5 more. And a female detective in Savannah has just put 2 and 2 together and basically figured out the person she took a picture of is probably the serial killer that was also in Atlanta. And she calls the 2 detectives in Atlanta by reading the newspaper, getting their names, and says, why don't you come over here and help me get a serial killer? And that's where this scene is starting. The boss said, no problem. Just catch us a serial killer, said Jordan when she returned. That's the plan, said Townsend. I have a reputation to maintain. He wasn't being arrogant, but he was proud of his stature as the department's golden boy, and he wanted to keep his record unblemished. The chief called a meeting, and Jordan led it and would be the lead in this investigation. Richardson watched proudly since they both considered her his protege and him her mentor. She was in control and spoke to the roughly 40 officers in the room. Okay, listen up, people. These men are Detectives Anthony Townsend and Nick Ramsey from Atlanta. It looks like we've got a serial killer in our midst. They'll tell you what they know. After that, I'll fill in any blanks, and then we'll answer questions. Lynch's iPad was connected to an overhead projector, and the picture of Pennington Wentworth II in the bloody T-shirt appeared on a 5-foot screen. Townsend and Ramsey explained the situation, that they'd had 7 homicides in metropolitan Atlanta, at first appearing to be unrelated. But after interviews with people that had contact with the victims, that there had been a male, white, mid-30s that had been with or at least near each victim shortly before their murders, which led them back to considering a person of interest they'd interviewed after the first. Detective Lynch had taken a picture of the person they'd interviewed, and now they felt like the 12 deaths in the 2 cities were related and attributed to the male they'd interviewed after the first homicide. Detective Lynch took over. Okay, people, this is our boy on the screen. I took his picture Saturday night. He's used a 2x4, a knife, his bare hands, a necktie, and in the case of a Catholic Monsignor, a solid gold chalice to murder his victims. We have no reason to think he has a gun, but no reason to believe he doesn't. Jordan remembered the one time she was in a gunfight, her first year as a detective. A man took his wife and 2 daughters hostage in their home, threatening to kill them and himself. First on the scene, she'd gotten an opening and taken him out. She hadn't liked it, but she did her job well, but at the same time hoped she'd never have to do it again. It had taken a year of talking to the department shrink to get it out of her head. Any questions? No? 2-man teams checking all hotels, motels, and apartments downtown first. We have copies of the picture for all of you. Pick them up on the way out. We have a grid staked out. We'll work it north from the river, guessing he'd want to be where the action is and not on one of the islands. We hope not anyway. Me and Detectives Townsend and Ramsey will be in the car floating. Radio if you get anything, and we'll get there as quick as we can. Stay alert and be careful out there. Lynch, Townsend, and Ramsey changed into casual clothes and sneakers, didn't want to look like cops, and had to be able to give chase if need be. The day ended without luck. No one at any of the apartments or hotels they visited recognized Pennington Wentworth II from the photo. It would have been an unbelievable stroke of good luck to find him on the first day anyway.
And yet I want more. And that's what good people do with their good writings on good radio shows. Thank you so much, Shane Eder, for coming on here and blessing me with your presence.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
I like being had.
And now we're going to swing into a segment that we've not done on Dante's Old South, and it includes a melody by D.L. Yancey II and a poem that I wrote in my new book called Athena Departs. But before we get into that grooviness, I want to ask Mr. D.L. some questions. How are you today, man?
Doing all right. Glad to be here.
You are definitely a repeat offender, as it was, back here in this studio, and every single time, without any jealousy from me, everyone who hears these shows loves what you do. First time I played your song, Mr. Soul, on CD, my mom burned it 47 times and has given it to everyone in the family. What I admire most about you, and what I hear as a complaint from so many people trying to get in the art world, is that they don't have time, that they don't have hours in the day. They have kids, they have a wife, they have a job. You have all of these plus some. Please tell me what your day job is like.
Man. So I usually wake up about 5 o'clock in the morning. That's when my day gets started, and I work from about 6 to about 3:30 or 4. And then from about 4 to about 6, I try to dedicate some time either to music or family time. And then after that, it's kind of like just kind of recapping for the day. So it's filled. It's filled. The whole day's filled. But during the daytime, I'm a engineer. So that's kind of how I pay the bills.
I am so lazy. Okay, all right, here we go. And beyond that, you told a story once when I was at Shorter University about how you almost had a job as a football player.
Yeah. So I went to the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, played running back and kick returner during the years of 2002 to 2007, and went to play arena football. Went to camp in Canada for the CFL, but never quite made it to the NFL ranks. But I was really close, really close.
And so many people mourn that, but it seems to me that your life is so full now. Do you look back and regret, or do you see it as the divine plan?
Yeah, I kind of see it as a divine plan. Of course, there's some decisions that, you know, if I could get back, I would probably make better decisions. But
that's called youth. We're all good.
yeah, exactly. You know, it is what it is. But I think now is kind of like living out the divine plan. Yeah.
And I think my last question will be a program called Math is Art. Tell me about that.
So Math is Art is a program that I developed about 3 years ago. And within the last year, I started to include the guitar as a piece of the program. So I teach middle school students, or I introduce them to physics concepts using the guitar and teaching them how to play, and also kind of dropping nuggets about math and about physics as we're learning the guitar. So.
And I mean, to me, it's people say left brain, right brain, but again, it's not jumping on your bandwagon here. But if you can tap your toe, music is math.
That's right.
You know, and again, when you can make that, I'm sure that's what it's about. If you can marry those things, it's not alien like, you know, music and poetry. There's that marriage of sound.
Absolutely.
And again, it is an honor to be in the room with you. I feel smarter here asking you these questions. Thank you. Mama would be proud. And we're going to do something along the lines of fusing music and poetry now, as I read a poem from Athena DeParts called Meeting Old Man Scratch, which was my nanny growing up would tell me the old Uncle Remus stories, and Old Man Scratch is a Old South term for the devil. And with the life I've lived, I may have met him once or more. So we'll start this, and we're going to, live on the radio, record Yancey's melody to a poem I hope does it justice. Meeting Old Man Scratch. Old Man Scratch seems sat back easy on my front porch, slouched in a chair where my grandmother snapped green beans during times men were more crossroad wise. Predestination or not, Granny knew her eldest son is one who would welcome calamity for more celebrity than he could carry. There's a black magic around my enchanted choice of occupation, but it is the music that keeps a fire in men. Still sitting, smiling, the saint of pimps appears almost blameless. Iniquity reclines in a reverie that seems complete and content like the first time I kissed a girl. Our shadows look lean and stretch out like the front legs of a brown recluse. And the sun, they seem the same, barely a breathable distance between us at any time. And it's a deliciously brutal climb. It is nothing new. There's too much truth in Georgia poet voodoo to let me forget my mama and a monster have an equal share of my tombstone stock. There's a tally taken for every untouched flower I pick, promise forever, and then only keep a single evening. There are spells and ink up both my arms to squirm a few more weeks of Sundays out in the sun until my wendigo wise up. Mad rushing memories have immortalized motels in Athens and romances in Rome. This restlessness is from knowing there's a hard time to get on with. Now, I try not to make my folks fuss too much. I've got one's good sense and the other's talent for thinking around it. Morality is best left to Milton. I've got a $100 bill and a golden fiddle built in when the world during a rave or Easter morning ends on a high note. But digging back into the devil, my only 2 cents sneers. Sugar bring on the rapture. I'm sure paradise is boring if all the women there are pure. I've got better things to do than worry about fear, forgiveness, and you. Ladies and gentlemen, it needs to be noted right now before Marsha Cornelius comes up with her piece of this program that some of her material may be deemed inappropriate for children. And now we have a new voice and new member of the Southern Collective Experience. Her name is Marsha Cornelius, and she is on Amazon as one of the best sellers there with 6 novels. She also runs a open mic of sorts, yet those on the open mic are chosen specifically by her, like a scientist with the elements that make literature amazing. I have been lucky enough to read at one of these events, and what I love most about it is the ambiance, the control she has over the group, the people that she pulls in, and the energy that she makes so apparent in her of the love of words that those who attend can't help but be or find it contagious in a way that does not make you ill at heart but full of soul. So before I go any further down that hole, would you please, Marsha Cornelius, tell us everything about you that makes you happy?
Everything that makes me happy. Oh, gosh. Oh, yeah. And I just got the signal that I'm supposed to say Clifford Brooks is number 1. There you go. Yeah, fist bump. Oh, I guess I'm happy that I'm retired and now I can write full time. That's what everybody's dream is, I suppose, that you get to a point in your life where you get to stay home, wear your pajamas, talk to your cats, and write books. And then that's my day.
All of that sounds fantastic, except for talking to the cats. What do you talk about?
Well, I'll read from my book. I'll read some dialogue, and they'll tell me if it's ringing true or if there's some problems, and I'll have to go back and edit.
Are there accents difficult to understand, or does it you two have a...
Well, we sort of have our own wavelength. Yeah. We have our own wavelength.
And in the time you do sit down and write, there's an idea, well, actually, of course, 2 sides of the same coin, that some people do it when it hits them, and then there's some who have a very regimented schedule. Which of those are you?
No. I can't have any sort of a regiment. I do have to write in the morning. I have to get up and write when things are fresh, but some days are good, some days are bad. And one of my best techniques is I carry a little spiral notebook, and I go outside and I take a walk. And I even tell myself, you don't get to go home until you work out this scene. So I'm just walking my neighborhood. And my neighbors actually have gotten used to seeing me stop in the middle of the road with my notebook. And I'm kind of like the neighborhood cow. She'll move, just toot your horn. She'll get out of the way. I mean, I live out in the country, so they're very tolerant. You just give her a minute. She's going to move.
I mean, it is. That's a commonality I've never heard before, because with me, it's the small ones where I'll stop in like the worst place ever in a mall, and people bumping into you, and all the friends are like, "No, he's okay. It just don't bother me. It'll be over faster. Just leave him alone."
That's right.
It is that I've read so many times. Again, people say, it is with all writers, have that notebook.
It is.
It's the big Coleridge fear that he was writing Kubla Khan, and somebody knocked the door. He went to get it, came back, and forgot the rest of the poems. I mean, it is. It's, you got to write. You have to write it down.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And when those ideas come to you, you have to get them really quick. You can't think, I have to remember that. 5 seconds later, it's gone. So Jot it down.
One of my favorite stories is from about Tom Waits. He was in traffic in L.A. one time, back to back, and he heard the Muse, and he finally said to himself, "Muse, I'm in traffic. Don't you see I'm busy? Let me write this down later." And I thought that's maybe I need to do that. But my Muse would say, "You know what? I'm never coming back." So, I don't push that envelope. So, I mean, again, it's neat for people to have those different opinions, and some work and some don't. What does work is novel idea.
Oh, it does.
Please tell us about that and where it's at and how we can get there.
Well, and I'm just going to admit right up front, I stole the idea from an event called Noir at the Bar. And I went to one of their programs where they had authors that came in and all they did was read crime stories. But it was a wonderful program. It was at a bar, so people could come and drink and eat and listen to people read about crime. So I'm thinking, I'd love to do that once a month, but you can't just have crime every month. So I've come up with a different theme. It could be science fiction. It could be historical fiction. Could be, last month was beach reads. So every month it's a different theme. And I invite 6 or 7 authors to come and read to an audience in this really funky bar in a little town in Georgia called Canton. They have an upstairs with their own bar. And it's, the wooden floors, the creaky stairs, but it's perfect for people to come and read and just enjoy an evening out.
Mm-hmm. I've been there several times, and it's the Snug, right? It's called the Snug.
That's right, the Snug.
The Snug. And I remember you told me I was the first poet to ever read, which some think, all right, and the other ones think, I'm going to get stoned out of here. No one's going to think I'm going to throw it. And the atmosphere that you actually, that you create, I mean, it's been one of the best readings that I've ever attended, and it brings you back because of the care you put into it. And I'm not trying to be an elitist, but you put so much homework into those that you choose that they meld together. There's not someone that's a doorknob in the group, and it really reinforces that those who might not like to read or like poetry or like certain kinds of novels go, when you hear it out loud, it makes it different than stale on the page, which so many people were ruined on in high school. Mm-hmm. And now, what I would like you to do, and one of my favorite parts of your writing, is the reading you do. So would you please tell us the book that you're going to read from and dazzle us with what I've heard so many times?
Okay, well, the latest book that I wrote is called Up to No Good. And it's about a woman and her husband. She's about to turn 40, and her life is pretty boring. And she thinks there's a house in their neighborhood that they're making porn videos, and she's just determined that she's going to get to the bottom of what's going on in her neighborhood. Well, the more she starts to snoop, the more trouble she gets into. But it's pretty funny. It's what's called a cozy mystery because she's an amateur trying to solve a crime. So this is, shall I just, okay. So this is just she and her husband. It seems like the only time Brian and I get physical is when he's tweezing the hairs on my neck or I'm rubbing icy hot onto his frozen shoulder. If I'm in the mood for some nookie, like when I'm reading a steamy novel, I pretty much have to pounce on him. Although, to be honest, my loins don't burn like they used to either. We're middle-aged and boring, I guess. I'm trying not to obsess about turning 40, but I can't help it. There's just no excitement in our lives. And we're together so much, both working at home and traveling, that there isn't even much to talk about anymore. His once full head of brown hair has thinned and gone gray at the temples. And even with all the walking I do, the sand is piling up at the bottom of my hourglass figure. While I'm at the sink draining bacon grease into an empty can, I notice movement out the kitchen window. It's Lisa Bradford cutting across the common area of everyone's backyard. She slips up onto the deck of their house and in through the sliding door. She should be in school. I think she's a senior. If she's sick and coming home, why wouldn't she use the front door? Obviously, she's sneaking in and doesn't want anyone to see her. I stand at the window with the frying pan in one hand, paper towel in the other, waiting. I figure some boy is going to dash across the yard at any moment. Then it occurs to me he might use the front door, pretending to make a delivery. Brian plods into the kitchen and comes up behind me. He looks past my shoulder and out the window. I'm planning on raking the rest of those leaves this afternoon. Interesting, isn't it? How guys are always wary about what women are thinking. I give a little shrug. I just saw Lisa Bradford sneak into her house. Who's Lisa Bradford? My shoulders slump, and I turn to look up at him. Really? The Bradfords have lived across from us for 7 years, and you don't know who Lisa is? He knits his eyebrows and wrinkles up his nose. Is that the wife? What a faker. The expression alone is a dead giveaway. I can't begin to count the number of times I've walked into the family room and caught Brian gazing out the sliding glass doors instead of sitting in front of the TV. He's hoping to get a glimpse of the lovely Lisa with the tight butt and youthful breasts. Catching her in a bathing suit, sunning in the backyard, can get a man an envious pat on the back at a neighborhood gathering. I know several guys who come over here to watch sports on our crappy 36-inch TV just because of the proximity to the Bradford's house. I back into Brian as I move away from the window and feel an erection in his sweatpants. Good night. He hasn't even seen her and he's got a boner? What has he been imagining? After throwing away the greasy paper towel, I pick up my cup of lukewarm tea and nearly blow the spit out through my nose. Skipping across the common area like a wood nymph is a girl with long blonde hair and colorful leggings tucked into a pair of Uggs. Before she gets to the Bradford's deck, Lisa has the sliding door open, a huge smile on her face. There's a brief kiss before they both disappear inside. That ought to get Brian Stiffy at full attention. I'd take advantage of the situation, but I refuse to profit from an erection produced by an underage teen.
As I sit here listening to her, I hope you heard the same thing. The fact that when you read fiction, poetry can be chopped up, moved around, enunciated again. Fiction often comes out like a speak-in spell. But Marsha Cornelius, when I first heard her, was one of those that tells the story and brings in the energy and makes you stay there. And every time I say this, and I'm looking at it right now, I'm going, no, this was accident. I did this in my sleep, and I don't even remember writing it. And I will never let her forget how brilliant she is at writing. So thank you for sharing this with everyone. And please do not forget that if you are in the area of Canton, Georgia,
It's the third Wednesday of every month, and it's from 7 to 9 p.m. And I do actually have a Facebook page called A Novel Idea. So you can catch up with me on Facebook. Even if you're an author and you think you'd like to come and read at one of our events, get in touch with me because I'm always looking for authors.
Again, I just cannot thank you enough. 1, for being on the show, and 2, for finally, after 3 months of begging, being a part of the Southern Collective Experience.
Thanks, Clifford. It's great to be a part.
And here we are again with one of my favorite poets and prose writers on the planet. And I say this because I have known her since 1996. She has, on more than one occasion, punched me in the face, and she beat me at a poetry contest our senior year in college, and she will never let me forget it, but that's what friends are for. Her name is Jennifer Avery. You have heard her on the show before, reading both prose and poetry, and much to her chagrin, because I am addicted to her poetry, and I also love her prose. I would love for her to read some poetry, but before we get to that, let's delve a little bit into Miss Avery's personal life, her fears, insecurities, and dreams for the future.
Okay.
Perhaps not that deep. Jennifer, tell us about what it was like in your youth and what those things created in you to coagulate into, I'm going to be a writer.
Okay, well, I always had a very active imagination. I'll give y'all an example here. When I was a little girl, I was convinced that there were 2 critters that lived under my bed, and they would want to grab me if I landed and didn't go quick enough. And so I would always hurry to get away from the bed so they wouldn't grab me. And I decided that they never got me because they were arguing with each other about who was going to grab me first. and that was kind of the first story I told myself that I can recall anyway. But I always had a really active imagination, and I always had a particular talent with words and the English language, and I always excelled at those things in school. And finally, in fourth grade, I wrote a play because it was one of our assignments, and the teacher loved it. And she told my mother, you know, this girl needs some extra classes so she can do some creative writing. And so when I was 12, my mother enrolled me in a creative writing class after school at Calhoun Middle School. And from that point on, I knew that was what I wanted to do.
It needs to be noted, good writing is also good grammar. And when I say that word, you and I both wince a little bit because we both went to Shorter University, and there was a darling young lady of the soul, not so much of the age, who terrified us both, who was probably 2 feet tall, very Southern, but had a fierceness about her that made you never look her in the face, Dr. Sarah Wingard.
She was so terrifying.
She gave us a class called Advanced Grammar. And when I say Advanced Grammar, if either of us hears a double negative or a semicolon used in the wrong place, or if someone doesn't know what a run-on sentence is, there might be something known as a grammar serial killer loose in the South.
Yeah.
These are the things, though, that make, I believe, the good writer, and then the understanding of how language works, how it all puts together, and also makes a great editor, which is something that you do on the side, correct?
It is.
And it's, in my opinion, almost harder than writing. And I know there's some writers that want to punch me in the face for that, but it truly is to distill it down into something much more palatable and succinct. However, we are not going to let you read your prose today, because the poetry that you have brought with you is some of the best you've ever written. And I've read all of it, so I'm a good judge of character. Don't get all falsely humble on us. Please share with them what I see so special.
Okay. All right. Well, this one is called Humid Heavy, and I wrote this. I was at a friend's house because I had to get away from the home situation I was in at the time. I was living with a feller that I didn't want to live with anymore. So this is called Humid Heavy. Moisture curls the pages. Air is saturated with fever breath. I love this porch. Quiet, even as that voice lingers on a spent cigar. Beowulf makes more sense here. Poetry reaches deep. No static noise dizzies the mind, overwhelms the ears, crowds the brain with superfluous ions. Nothing here is too much. Mist clings like sweat to the tongue. Okay, and the second one is called A Lemon, and this was about another unfortunate relationship. And the end of that was probably one of the most regretful ones I've had. It's called A Lemon. A lemon, sour of course, too pricey and prone to break down, took me for everything I had. Fractured peace of mind on the edge of perpetual disaster. Weary and out of endearments, I sold it. Why bother trading in? Walking is good for the soul. And then one more. I only have 3 today. This is called When the Air Went Pink. And this is, there was a big storm coming. And I remember when I was a little kid, I used to feel storms coming in my gut. And that's kind of what this is about. This is called When the Air Went Pink. The wind pitches clouds, swirling in opposite directions. A cold gale cuts through a humid warm. A signal born in childhood, a moment when the air went pink. Nervous flutters in the belly, over time moved upward. Havoc cut loose through a tenuous, messy piece. Like a bolt sprung from Charybdis' mouth, the pump of blood spreads plasma. Order lies in mathematical chaos. Letters and words sit in opposition, but work like turncoats to bring about an eloquent sense.
What I found in poets like no offense, James Dickey, is that he doesn't know when to stop. He goes on for pages and pages and pages. And what I have found almost, in my opinion, more virtuous with poetry is that is one of those things that you cut to the bone, but not to the marrow. And that's why I love those three of yours, is that you get it all in one snapshot.
Thank you.
And before we let you loose, what projects do you have out there? What side jobs do you have? How can people get a hold of you to get your expertise on language and on grammar and composition?
Okay, well, like I said, I'm an editor, and I'm a content editor, which means that I don't just do line edits. I edit for continuity, dialogue, flow, and sentence structure. I edit very, very meticulously. So if that's what you need, you can email me at javery, that's Javery, the letter S, the letter C, E, at gmail.com. And again, that's Javery, SCE, at gmail.com. And I can, and also I'm happy to do online tutoring as far as creative writing, as far as literature, grammar, anything like that. I'd be happy to do that as well. And beyond all that, I'm currently working on a book. I was working on one that I switched to another one because it'll get done quicker. Yes, it will. And that's about it. So,
thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you. Not only for that, but being a voice of reason in my life when I needed it most. You were a friend for life.
You too, darling.
And to close out the show, we have the brilliant Amy Jacobean. She is not only a best friend, a wonderful mother, and one with great purpose. Her soul doesn't seem to ever extinguish in its need to bring up hope in those in the inner cities or those from homes that don't provide the artistic inspiration they need to break free of the chains, whether they be in mood or in their hurt of the past, fear of the future. And to go on any further, I feel like that I would cheapen what it is that she finds such a driving force and what she hopes will make the world a better place. So before I drone on anymore, I'm going to leave it to Amy to tell us more about the projects that she has in Nashville and those things in her life that make her the most happy.
Thanks. I don't know what to say after such a sprawling introduction. I appreciate it. So Nashville always has a lot going on. The literary scene is a big deal out there. I think a lot of people kind of overlook it because they associate it so strongly with country music, to no fault of their own, for sure. So for me personally, I started working with other writers and other poets in the area through the Conservatory, Nashville House of Poets, because I had been a single mother for a while, and I never had time to work on my own work because I had to go to real work. I had 2 jobs, sometimes 3 jobs, and there just wasn't time to paint. There wasn't time to write, and if I did need time to do anything like that, I had to hire a babysitter or make sure that my kids were going to be taken care of, with family or something. So I always swore to myself, if I ever got to a point where I was able to work on my art and my writing, that I would pursue a project like this. And it's something we're really passionate about, and I'm very, very excited about, and I hope to see go far into the future. And
what is this called, the project you're talking about?
Nashville's House of Poets. And I call it a house because it denotes comfort. I want people to feel comfortable. I want people to be given the opportunities and the resources they need to pursue their work and to not be limited by life circumstances, be that a daily job or family or any other kinds of paramount responsibilities that people should put first. So it's something that I've been pursuing for a while now, and we're really starting to gain some traction. I'm very, very excited about it.
Even being a member of the Southern Collective Experience, and of course, this always being independent in your life, how do you see the SCE helping your mission and your membership in it promote and further along what it is you want most in the world?
So, being a part of a collective is new for me, but I am really big on community. I think that artists and poets and writers and any kind of creative personality in general have always existed well in communities, even though there is that isolation there for work. What I'm hoping to do is use the influence around us to teach some of the younger poets that it's okay to belong in a community. It's okay to share your work. It's okay to work with other people. You're not going to lose your voice. You're not going to be vulnerable when you are among friends. And that's one of the other reasons why we call it a house, because it is family.
And I think when we first started talking about the collective and what you did, what hummed most melodically between us was that same fact of not losing who you are, or
Right.
not being afraid to be a part of a family, or knowing that when you come in and you're going to be critiqued, it's not going to be mean, it's going to be constructive.
Exactly.
And that's what makes all of this flourish, no matter what medium it is that you use. You talk about, and I have seen, and it warms my heart, what a wonderful mother you are.
Oh, thank you so
And
much.
it's not. And again, in this day and world, I mean, I'm about to get up on the soapbox and take us all to church, but the parents have just fallen off the earth and decided to go party. And so when we speak, and I hear you level with them, and then on the photos that you have, where again you can tell that you have brought up in all of the ventures that you're in 2 fantastic kids. Please, for the love of the
thank you.
Lord, tell all the listeners how you do that.
I mean, it definitely is the most important role of my life, and I will never put anything above that, for sure. I think that when you have children, and be it a stressful environment or even just busy, life can get busy. Sometimes if you don't keep things in perspective and focus on how precious that time is and how fast it goes by, you'll lose it. You'll miss it. And then one day you will turn around and be looking at an adult who has no idea who they are. And that rests squarely on your shoulders. And I take that very seriously. So I do have a lot of important things that I do in my life. I do value the arts, and all of the projects we have going on are very critical for me, but there will never be anything that even comes close to being a mother. And I said this just recently to a friend of mine. Tomorrow morning, if something came up, I would walk away from every bit of it without a thought. I would turn around and walk away if it meant that my children would benefit in some way, or if it was a necessity to my sons, regardless of the outcome. And that's just one of those things that you have to remind yourself of daily, and in every choice that you make. Don't ever change your mind.
And I just broke out in a sweat and realized that's why I have no children.
Oh,
so I'm so glad that you said that I have that. I'm just being real. What most strikes me, and it's what's going to be in the Southern Collective's Experiences summer issue, is a section called Books That Are Not Published But Should Be. And this one is by you. So please read some of the work that you have that is included in that volume.
Awesome. Thank you. I will do that. Okay, so this one is called Welcome. The inside of my mind is an ocean that swells constantly. There is no stillness. There are no timetables. We don't own that kind of furniture here. Everything is present tense. I buried him this morning. I birthed them this afternoon. In my soul, it all feels the same. Life is weird and hard and incredible. It has made me a dichotomy, soft and hard, gentle and violent, calm and angry. So don't be surprised if you leave here feeling just a little bit different than when you came in. My magic is that I'm only 1,000 times exclusively myself, and I learned to love this a long time ago. So sometimes it's going to be beautiful. Sometimes you're going to cry. Sometimes it might even be funny. Sometimes it will be disconsolate. Sometimes it'll be disturbing. And sometimes it's not going to make any sense, even a little at all. But you're here as an observer. I need no translators. I am my own translation. And you will learn as you go, or not at all. The second one is called Bedtime Stories. In this quest for identity, I found a lonely wolf. He wore skin and a sly smile, offered protection from himself and his rabid hunger as he licked my skin. But in that everlasting winter, I became the frozen lake, ready to drown him calmly and with ease. A slight crack and hard turn of the neck. I am the warm feeling that comes right before death, that veiled comfort. Just inhale, relax, blackout, so I can wear your fur of lies like a cloak in those blowing winter winds of change. And the last one is called Solar Flares. I think of you in tongues, trying to sort out the quiet chaos you cause, but I'm just losing my grip in all this noise. Your certainty was elusive to me, and I envied the stability of the sun, fixed in its sky so sure and confident, but we all know we're just one flare away. Things down here are much more fluid, transient, unstable. The weather in my room is all thunderstorms and vanquished enthusiasm for dreams I was never sure I could create. And I think it's funny in a way that after all that time, I walked away without so much as a glance. I shed you like a skin I outgrew and found your bones bleached years later, washed up on that beach I stay so far from. It's funny how time always catches up.
I usually have something witty to say at this point, and I feel like I'm wearing out the word amazing, but it truly does. It walks the line of melodrama and the way life is, and the hope that when the waves wash it away, there will be no bones and there'll be no fear and there'll be just you happy. That's the way I pick up on it. Please, Amy, remind people of their websites people can go to hear learn more about you and your work and in the house that you're hoping to build.
So Nashville House of Poets does have its own website. It also has its own Facebook page. We're really easy to find. That is by design, for sure. I also have my own website for my work. Most of the time I use a blog site called Tumblr because that's just what us millennials do, I guess. I use that often. I love it. It's creative. I enjoy it. And I read on that whole site regularly. There are a lot of really interesting things that come up there, a lot of cool work. So you can always find me by my name. Like I said, Facebook and social media make that really easy. So we try not to be difficult to hunt down.
The Southern Collective experience, I have found, has become more than I ever, and people say this all the time, could think in my wildest dreams. And had I wrote on a piece of paper what I believe this thing, written on a piece of paper what I thought this could be in 5 years, never thought that it would bring in, it's not my talent or my benefits, but the people and the radio station like WUTC with NPR that astound me every time and make me humble and happy that I have friends and colleagues that help me keep my own passions alive. If you want to find out more about all the members in the collective, find old previous recordings of Dante's Old South, our magazine Blue Mountain Review, our new issue about to come out in 3 weeks, and any detail you want on touring with anyone in the group, please go to www.southerncollectiveexperience.com. And if you wish to leave there and find this debonair cat that started it all, you go to www.cliffbrooks.com. Thank you so much for joining us yet again and giving us time in your home. We hope that these words bring you hope and reflection. And if it does create some sort of sadness in you, that it's not negative. It's just a reflection on who you were, and how much happier you can be in the future. Thank you.